The air thrums with the ceaseless static of Jupiter. Even our shielded command center, miles above the swirling storms, trembles under the assault. My heart mimics the rhythm, an insistent throb beneath my ribs. "Incoming atmospheric report. Commander Reed." Lieutenant Morgan barks out the words, snapping me out of my brooding. He's an eager one, eyes full of stars, and that youthful belief in humanity's cosmic destiny. It's been dulled lately. I nod and accept the datapad. It glows dully in the command center's half-light, figures scrolling in neat rows. The usual soup: hydrogen, helium, a dash of ammonia ice. We were hoping, naively perhaps, for something more. A whisper of organic compounds, or unusual energy signatures. Instead, there's this vastness of predictable chemistry. "Another dead end, Commander," Morgan ventures. Disappointment bleeds into his otherwise crisp voice. "Perhaps," I say, tapping the datapad with a sigh. "But we knew it was a long shot, Lieutenant. Science is a game of patience, you'll learn that." I see the flash of resentment in his eyes and file it away. He's keen, but with the kind of arrogance that thrives in the gravity-bound academy, not out here in the unforgiving black. We're the nomad mission sent to the underworld, no hope of return. Our job is to map Jupiter's upper atmosphere, to peer beneath its thick clouds, even if it kills us. We were hand-picked for the honor of the suicide run. Or so I thought. "Incoming transmission. High priority, sir," says Carlson, our communications officer. He swivels around, his face starkly white against the dim readouts. Frowning, I take the receiver. A burst of distorted audio fills the bridge before resolving into a voice. "Nomad, this is mission control. Abort the mission and retreat immediately. Repeat, abort and retreat." The bridge descends into stunned silence. Morgan's mouth works uselessly. Carlson's console chirps with unanswered alerts. "Mission control, this is Nomad. Confirm orders. Did you say abort?" My voice steadies itself around the sudden pit in my stomach. There has to be a mistake, a glitch. We've barely started. "Affirmative, Nomad. New intelligence indicates an imminent..." The signal dissolves into a rush of noise. Whatever they meant to say is lost in the electromagnetic churn of Jupiter. My mind races. Something must have been detected, some threat they underestimated. "Morgan, analysis of all orbital readings. Give me a threat projection." He fumbles, then his fingers fly across his console. "Nothing, sir. No objects, no anomalous readings. There's nothing there." "Carlson, try establishing a clean channel to control," I order, heart sinking further. This makes no sense. "Negative, Commander. Heavy interference." Panic seeps into Carlson's normally by-the-book tone. A tremor rocks the ship, more violent than usual. "Morgan!" I shout, because fear is eating at my insides like a trapped animal. "Commander," his voice is a whisper. "Look." Turning toward the viewport, I freeze. Jupiter's banded atmosphere shifts and parts, not revealing space as it should, but something far more horrifying. Within the roiling gases, a shape materializes, colossal and indefinable. And it's rising toward us. It's not possible. Morgan chokes out the words, his youthful face blanched. But it is. The impossible rears upwards, a vast blot dwarfing our ship. Its surface, if you can call it that, churns like an angry sea, mottled in shades of green and jaundiced yellow. No discernible form, yet a sense of violation hangs over it, an assault on our very senses. "Shields, full power!" I bark out, snapping into action. If it's a creature, however immense, shields may offer at least momentary resistance. "Aye, Commander!" Carlson's response is swift, hands dancing over his console. The familiar thrum of the shield generators rises, a feeble counterpoint to the growing dread in the command center. It hits us like a thunderbolt, not an impact, but a sickening lurch. Our vessel bucks violently, alarms scream, and somewhere below decks, I hear the distant crash of shattering equipment. "Damage report." The words are wrenched from my throat. Someone has to maintain order, some semblance of control amidst the chaos. Shield integrity at 60% and dropping. Carlson's voice pitches high with fear. Structural breach section C. Atmosphere venting. Seal it off, I fire back. Each compartment jettisoned means resources lost. Survival time shaved away. Commander. Morgan's whisper sounds almost apologetic, but his eyes are locked on the viewport. The creature, if that's what it is, envelops us. Thick tendrils like noxious vines writhe against the straining force field. Analysis, Lieutenant, now! I snap at him, needing a distraction, anything to focus on beyond the monstrous tendrils probing our defenses. I don't... He stammers for the first time since I've known him. Sensors are going haywire, bio readings. I've never seen anything like it. My fear turns to rage, hot and irrational. Find something useful, damn it! From the corner of my eye, I see Carlson slump over his console. Commander, pressure readings are critical. Decks 4 through 8 are reporting atmosphere loss. His voice trails off into a gasp. Carlson! Panic bites hard now. Even through the ship's internal comms, there's silence. I sprint across the swaying command center, shoving past Morgan, who seems frozen in place, a deer caught in headlights. Carlson's body is contorted, skin blotched an angry purple. Oxygen deprivation. The creature outside squeezes tighter. Another alarm blares, a piercing wail announcing the inevitable. Shield collapse in 10. A computerized voice drones. 9, 8. There are no options left, no miracles waiting in the wings. We thought we were probing an undiscovered world. Instead, it seems the world found us. 3, 2. The countdown amplifies my own faltering heartbeat. Lieutenant! I yell across the dying bridge. Morgan, get your head on straight! We need to... Damn it, man! Do something! The lieutenant finally stirs, his eyes wide and reflecting the awful glow from the viewport. 1. We brace, awaiting the monstrous thing to consume us. Instead, utter darkness descends. The darkness is suffocating, as complete as the vacuum of space. And then, a new horror. The sound. A wet, slithering cacophony, as if thousands of slithering bodies crawl against every ship bulkhead. It's inside the walls, whatever those might be, and it's creeping closer. Lights! Emergency lights! I shout, fumbling in the dark for some control, any kind of control. Red emergency lights sputter weakly to life, revealing a scene as bleak as my spirit. Carlson's body is still slumped in his chair. Morgan huddles against the far wall, eyes wide with terror and fascination. Sir, what was that? He manages, voice strangled. If I knew, Lieutenant, I wouldn't be standing here. My own voice is steadier than I feel. We're dead men just enjoying a brief reprieve. The noise intensifies, scraping, wet thuds. I grab my sidearm, a pathetic gesture perhaps, but it's the weight of familiarity in my hand that matters. It's breaching the hull, Morgan cries out, pointing to a panel near the ceiling. A bead of translucent slime oozes through a hairline crack. I fire off a shot, the blast deafening in the confined space. The panel melts and bubbles, the seepage stops, but there are more cracks spiderwebbing across the ceiling. Commander! Morgan looks at me, the young bravado replaced by a desperate plea. What do we do? I want to scream at him that there's nothing to do, to curse control for putting us in this hopeless position. But leaders don't do that, and right now I'm all these men have. Options! I force the words out. Give me options! He blinks back tears. We can try to seal the breaches. Maybe if we can stabilize the pressure. His voice trails off, the unspoken implication hanging between us. We're a deep space vessel, not a bucket riddled with holes. Any containment is temporary at best. And then, I press him, power down, go into minimal life support. He looks at our dead communications panel. Hope for a rescue that's likely not coming. The plan is feeble, born of despair rather than strategy. But it's something. All right, I nod. You, sealing breaches. I'll handle power management. A tremor rocks the ship, more violent than before. The ceiling groans, rivets popping like brittle bones. It won't be long now. Morgan gets to work, welding torch flaring in the gloom. I move toward the power console, mind racing despite the bleak situation. Every system deactivated means minutes, maybe hours, added to our dwindling survival clock. But what's the point of extending the inevitable? A mad thought cuts through the despair. This isn't just death, it's consumption, swallowed whole, digested by whatever this thing is. We're not just prey, we're potential nutrients. Morgan is busy at the far end of the room. Hiss of the welding torch and showers of white sparks his only defense against the encroaching nightmare. The power console hums under my touch. Non-essential systems shut down with satisfying thunks. Environmental modulation, data processing. Each deactivated circuit, another small victory against oblivion. And as I work, an idea starts to form, taking hold of my mind. "Morgan!" I yell over the growing din of scraping and dripping. The slime is seeping in through more cracks now. "Get over here!" He rushes over, sweat slicking his face. "Sir, I don't think these welds are going to hold much longer. It's everywhere." "Forget the breaches," I interrupt. "Look, the main drives. Can we overload them?" His eyes widen in confusion. "Overload? Commander, we'll blow ourselves sky high." "Not if we do it right," I say, the idea solidifying in my head. Controlled burst, directed pulse. It won't destroy the ship, but it might cripple whatever the hell is attached to us. Morgan stares at me as if I've lost my mind. Perhaps I have. "Sir, with all due respect, that would take precise calculations, reconfiguring circuits." "We don't have time for precise," I snap. "Listen." I outline my reckless plan. Morgan hesitates, but I see a spark of something like defiance in his eyes. "We're dead anyway. Might as well die fighting." The bridge is bathed in green light filtering through widening cracks. The scraping grows louder, the slime drips faster. This is our last stand. "I'll rewire the systems," Morgan nods. "You get the timing ready." We work side by side, fingers flying over consoles, the hum of the dying ship, our soundtrack. It's a dance against not just the creature, but also time itself. Each passing second bringing us closer to being digested alive. "Almost there!" Morgan shouts, his voice strained. "Just need to bypass the safety limiters." The noise is deafening now. The bulkheads creak and something begins to push its way through the cracks, membranes of glowing flesh. "Now!" I shout, hitting the activation sequence. The surge tears through the ship, the lights overload with a blinding flash, and then a blast wave throws us backwards. My ears ring, my vision blurs. Through the haze, I see sparks shower from the ceiling, and the tendrils recoil, sizzling. There's a blessed moment of silence, and then a scream. A horrible, inhuman scream that pierces the ringing in my ears. Blinded and unsteady, I stumble to the viewport. The creature is retreating, writhing back into the stormy atmosphere of Jupiter. Our ship shudders, groans, and then nothing. We hang suspended in the darkness, damaged but alive. We float untethered, suspended in the silence left by the creature's retreat. The command center is a shambles. Panels warped. Consoles sparked and smoking. Morgan lies on his side, groaning, blood trickling from his nose. I'm surprised I'm not in worse shape myself. Staggering to my feet, I cross to him. "Lieutenant, report!" Barking the order brings some semblance of control back to the chaos. He coughs, blinking dazed eyes. "Sir, I think I broke something. Mostly, though. My head hurts like hell." "Can you move?" I ask, kneeling beside him. "Just give me a minute, Commander. Doubt we're going anywhere anytime soon." He's right. The surge knocked out most of our systems. We're a hulk in space. My mind begins the assessment, automatic after years of drills. Structural integrity compromised, likely breaches along the port side. Power is barely a trickle, internal atmosphere. Breathable for now, but it's a matter of time. "First priority, stabilize," I say aloud, thinking through the steps. "Power, atmosphere, then assess how badly we're adrift." "Right, sir," Morgan croaks from the floor, struggling to sit up. "I can crawl over to the system's diagnostics." Negative. I stop him. Help me with Carlson first. My comms officer still hasn't moved. Dread coils in my stomach as I turn him over. Even in the emergency lights, his face is a purple-blue, eyes open, but vacant. Carlson, I say sharply, giving his shoulder a shake. Nothing. No pulse, no breath. The knot in my gut tightens. The first casualty. It won't be the last. Sir. Morgan starts but trails off, mirroring the grim realization on my own face. Later. I cut him off. No time for mourning. For now, we focus on survival. I cover Carlson's body with a spare tarp. We'll have to deal with him properly once we're back in some semblance of control. The boy was good at his job, dependable. A damn shame. Morgan! My voice is harsh, intentionally so. Keeps the despair at bay. Get to that console and tell me what's not broken. He nods, determination returning to his eyes. That fight or flight reflex is kicking in, and I'm counting on it. While he struggles with the half-dead consoles, I move through the ship, taking stock. The corridor lights are dim, powered by backup batteries. They cast long, warped shadows that dance uneasily along the walls. Most of the sealed compartments seem to be holding, but there's a hissing leak near supply that has me worried. We're going to have to plug that breach, I tell Morgan when I return to the command center. His shoulders slump in defeat, a reaction I have to override. Sir, we barely have enough power for life support, let alone... Then we cannibalize! I cut him off sharply. Non-essential sections, whatever we can scavenge. Bulkheads, wiring. We patch that hole or we'll bleed our atmosphere within a day. We both know there won't be a rescue, no second chance. It's down to us or we die here. He stares, defiance battling with the stark reality. Finally, he nods. Yes, Commander. It's barely a whisper, but it's enough. Getting the breach sealed takes us most of the remaining day. It's grueling work, tearing down panels, wrestling with heavy segments of bulkhead, sealing the gaps with a fast-curing polymer that makes my eyes sting. By the time we're done, we're both exhausted, muscles screaming, skin caked with grime. Collapsing on the floor, too weary even to find a proper bunk, I close my eyes. The thrum of barely there life support is a lullaby to exhaustion. When I manage to drift into a troubled sleep, it's filled with monstrous shapes and the persistent drip, drip, drip of leaking slime. I awake with a start. It takes a moment to shake off the nightmare and orient myself in the dimness of the wrecked command center. Morgan is still asleep, slumped in a corner, a wrench clutched in his dirty hand. The hunger pangs in my belly are a brutal reality I'd managed to ignore during the frenzy of repair work. Food. I mutter to myself, the first word I've spoken in hours. The ship's stores should still be intact, though without power, those rations will be basic survival fare. I force myself to my feet, knowing if I sit still any longer, despair will creep back in. In the mess hall, a single emergency light flashes feebly. The ration packs are there, neatly stacked in their metal cases. As I tear one open, I can't shake the feeling of eyes upon me. Like the ship itself is watching, alive somehow, changed by its encounter with whatever it was out there. I swallow a mouthful of the bland, nutrient-dense paste. It tastes of defeat. I finish the ration pack, but the hollow ache in my stomach isn't just hunger. It's unease, a crawling itch under my skin. This ship, our sanctuary, feels different. Alien, contaminated perhaps by the creature that swallowed us. Suddenly, movement at the far end of the mess hall catches my eye. I spin around, pulse pounding. Morgan! My voice sounds oddly in the dimness. I take a hesitant step forward, eyes straining in the shadows. Nothing. Just empty tables and the steady drip of a failing condensation unit. Nerves, probably. The isolation, the trauma. It's playing tricks. Still, I can't shake the feeling I'm being watched. Exiting the mess hall, I decide to check the viewport. Hope persists. Perhaps we drifted close enough to an orbital lane. Maybe there's a chance of being spotted by a passing freighter. Even if comms are down, a distress beacon. Something. The command center is as I left it, a wreck bathed in the sullen glow of emergency lights. Morgan is still sprawled asleep. Moving to the viewport, my breath catches. Outside, there's movement in the swirling storms of Jupiter. Not the mindless churn of wind and gas, but shapes. Vast, indefinable shapes, drifting with impossible grace just beneath the thick cloud layers. They're too far to see clearly. Are those? Morgan's voice, rough from sleep, startles me. He's come up behind me, rubbing his eyes. I don't know, I say honestly. Fear prickles along the back of my neck. But if they're like the thing that attacked us... What do we do, Commander? Morgan asks, a note of panic edging into his voice. We survive, is my firm reply, though it feels hollow even as I say it. Survival means adaptation. We can't fight these creatures. They operate on a scale we can't comprehend. My eyes narrow as I focus back on the shapes below. We need to understand them. Become observers rather than prey. A plan begins to take shape, rough and dangerous. Morgan! My voice cuts through the silence of the stricken command center. We need observation points. He blinks, the fog of sleep clearing from his face. Sir? Eyes and ears, I clarify. This ship is a blind, crippled beast now. We need to know what's out there, anticipate threats. I walk towards the viewport, watching the shifting shapes in Jupiter's atmosphere. They move with eerie grace, occasionally rising close enough to the cloud tops for a fleeting glimpse of impossibly vast forms. Observation points, Morgan murmurs, then nods slowly. Right, access panels, maintenance ducts. It won't be comfortable, but... It won't be comfortable doing anything anymore. I cut him off. We either make ourselves useful eyes for this ship, or those things out there will be the last thing we ever see. Reality bites hard, and I see his resolve steel. We'll need light sources, some way of communicating. Jury rig whatever you can, I interrupt. We need to conserve power right now. I leave him to it, his mind finally clicking into the rhythm of survival. I have my own task, inventory, assessment, the brutal calculus of what we have left. Our world has shrunk to the steel skin of this ship and the dwindling supplies within. We fall into a harsh routine. Sleep is in shifts, ration packs are meticulously divided. Every salvage system becomes precious. Morgan crawls through the maintenance shafts, rigging dim lights and crude communication lines to give us a web of eyes and ears across the ship. I spend my time watching the viewport, learning the patterns of the creatures below. They are more numerous than I first thought, a whole silent ecosystem suspended within Jupiter's depths. Some are smaller forms that move with predatory speed. Others are impossibly large, their passage disturbing the cloud layer like a leviathan stirring from the ocean floor. The sense of contamination, the alienness that clings to the air of the ship intensifies. Sometimes I swear the very walls writhe, the shadows taking on vaguely animalistic shapes. Sleep, when I can snatch it, is plagued by dreams of dripping slime and eyes that gleam from the inky blackness. It's several days into our new existence when Morgan calls me urgently to the aft observation point. When I arrive, cobwebs and a layer of dust clinging to my uniform, he's hunched over a console, face pale. Commander, you need to see this, he whispers, gesturing at a view screen. The image is grainy, barely lit by a jury-rigged light source, but it's clear enough. One of the creatures, smaller but still immense, is breaching a section of our outer hull. Its flesh is slick and shiny. It's feeding, I breathe, feeding on the metal, the very substance of our sanctuary. Sir, what do we do? Morgan's voice breaks the horrified silence. His eyes are wide, reflecting the creature tearing at our hull on the view screen. We drive it off, I say with a certainty I don't truly feel. This isn't the same as the blind assault we survived before. This creature is methodical, stripping away our defenses, piece by piece. But how? Morgan whispers. His gaze darts to the sealed emergency hatches nearby. We both know our weapons are pitifully inadequate against a creature of such size. Suddenly, an idea sparks, born of a desperation that borders on madness. My mind races back to the moment of attack, the surging heat, the way the creature's tendrils recoiled from the blast wave. "Morgan, fuel!" I say, grabbing his shoulder to fix his gaze on mine. "It might be vulnerable to fire." He stares at me, understanding dawning. "Sir, you think we can weaponize it?" "I don't know," I admit, mind racing. "But we have nothing else. If we can pump fuel to the exposed area, rig a trigger, create a burst of flame." My voice trails off as I envision the plan, reckless and dangerous, but our only chance. Morgan is already ahead of me. "We could modify the auxiliary fuel lines. If we can get enough fuel to that spot, it might just work," I finish his thought. "We may not be able to kill them, but maybe we can make the ship unpalatable, a burning hazard, and convince them to seek easier prey." For the next few hours, we work to bypass safety protocols with reckless abandon. We don't talk much, too focused on the task. I feel a pang of guilt at the potential destruction, but the cold reality is that it's either the ship or us. By the time the rigging is finished, the outer hull is compromised further. Morgan sets up a remote detonator near the breach. "Ready, Commander," he says, voice tight with anticipation. I nod, my own stomach twisted into knots. "Let's see if this works." With a trembling hand, I hit the detonator. The network of pipes shudders, and then a thick stream of fuel bursts forth, coating the creature in a matter of seconds. We hold our breath. One spark. Just one. I flick the secondary igniter. A burst of flame erupts where the fuel meets the creature's exposed flesh. The beast lets out a piercing shriek, the force of which ripples through the very bones of the ship, recoiling from its feeding spot. The creature thrashes violently, the flames spreading across its slick form. Finally, it retreats, writhing back into the stormy depths. My knees buckle with relief and I hear a sigh from Morgan. "It worked," he breathes, a shaky grin on his face. "We did it." Victory hangs as bittersweet as smoke in the command center. We won a battle, bought precious time, but at a cost. The ship creaks, new breaches weeping corrosive slime. Sections of the hull are blackened and warped from the blast of fuel. We're a wounded beast, slowly bleeding out in the heart of a hostile world. "We can't stay here," I say, voicing the reality. "It's only a matter of time before more come, or this whole rust bucket disintegrates around us." "But where, sir? Everywhere we turn, there's—" He gestures helplessly at the viewport, where the vast shapes continue their hypnotic dance beneath the roiling clouds. The thought of venturing out again fills me with dread, but survival often lies down the path you fear the most. "Deeper," I say, the realization dawning as I stare at Jupiter's banded atmosphere. It's a gamble, one based on instinct rather than logic. The creatures seem to thrive closer to the upper atmosphere. Maybe, if we descend into the crushing pressures, we'll find a dead zone, a space too harsh even for them. Our preparations are hurried. We stockpile supplies, reinforce the most critical systems, and seal off damaged sections of the ship, hoping it'll hold together long enough. Every hour feels precious, stolen. There's no time for sentimentality. Nothing to bring save our lives and the faint hope that they're worth saving. When we're as ready as we'll ever be, I initiate the descent. The ship groans in protest. Around us, the viewport becomes a swirl of color, the familiar bands of Jupiter replaced by deeper shades of orange and red as the pressure mounts. "Readings are off the charts, Commander," Morgan calls out, his voice tense. "I've never seen anything like it." "Keep her steady," I order, my knuckles white as I grip the armrests. If the hull caves now, it'll be an instant, merciful death. But we are spared that fate. Gradually, the shaking subsides. The swirling colors stabilize. We've pierced a new layer of this Jovian hell. The search begins. It's slow, torturous. Our improvised sensors can only probe so far into the dense atmosphere. We drift for days that blur together, the oppressive darkness broken only by the feeble glow of jury-rigged lights. Fear is always present. What if there's nothing down here? What if it's a realm even more hostile than the one above? Just when despair seems ready to swallow us whole, a flash on the scanners. "Morgan!" I bark, lunging over to his console. "What is that?" He squints at the screen, adjusts some dials. "It's a void, sir. A pocket where density drops drastically." Hope, frail and foolish, sparks within me. Could it be a cavern, a hollow space? Morgan shrugs helplessly. "Don't know, sir, but it's something different, that's for damn sure." "Different's good," I mutter. "Set a course." We may have stumbled upon the key to our survival, or the final step before oblivion. In this strange world, it's sometimes impossible to tell the difference. We approach the anomaly with anticipation and dread. The ship creaks and groans, a witness to the relentless pressure. Through the viewport, the swirling murk resolves into something sharper. Straight lines begin to appear, stark and defiant amidst the nebulous atmosphere. "Is that a structure?" Morgan breathes, awe creeping into his voice. I blink, trying to make sense of the shapes forming as we draw closer. It's hard to comprehend. Weathered, colossal, angular, it resembles nothing Earth made. "Ancient," I whisper. It's the only explanation. This vast, forgotten relic predates humanity itself. We circle the structure, awe giving way to urgent assessment. Is it intact? Is there breathable atmosphere within? It seems impossibly large, a hollowed-out monolith of unknown purpose. We discover a breach along its side, a vast opening that makes our ship look like a mere toy. "We're going in," I announce, a strange calm settling over me. If this isn't salvation, it's at least a quick end to the agonizing uncertainty. Guiding the ship into the opening is a test of nerves. The scale is disorienting, and strange energy readings flash across our jury-rigged sensors, adding to the unease. The inner space is a vast chamber, the air breathable but faintly acrid. We set down on a smooth metallic surface, the engines groaning in protest as I finally shut them down. Silence descends, absolute and jarring after weeks filled with the perpetual hum of our life support. "Sir, are you sure?" Morgan asks. "As sure as I'll ever be," I respond. Taking a step towards the boarding ramp is like stepping into a new world, a new chapter in our bid for survival. Let's see what this old girl has to offer. Cautiously we emerge. The first thing I notice is stability. No sway, no creaking bulkheads. Then the lights, pale, glowing orbs clinging to the distant ceiling. "Plants," Morgan mutters, pointing to patches of glowing moss sprawling across the metallic floor. Life found a way, even here. The structure holds mysteries, but also grim realities. I spot remnants of machinery, indecipherable but undoubtedly ruined, suggesting a long-abandoned civilization. "This place, it feels dead, sir," Morgan murmurs. "Maybe," I concede. "But for now, it's ours. It's shelter, a chance to catch our breath, regroup. It wasn't the home we set out for, but we're alive, and that itself feels like a brief victory." Weeks turn into months inside our Jovian tomb. The structure is vast, a maze of empty chambers and silent corridors. We make a feeble attempt to map it, but it feels like charting the depths of an alien mind. At first, the relief of being safe outweighs the unease. Routine brings a semblance of control. We scavenge supplies from the ship, find ways to coax the moss into edible paste. Survival becomes a puzzle we learn to solve. It's the silence that gets to us first. There's the hiss of our air recyclers, our labored breaths, but nothing from outside. It's a void of sound that presses against your eardrums, a constant whisper of isolation. Morgan starts talking to himself. At first, it's muttered calculations or snippets of old mission reports. Then it becomes conversations, two-sided arguments with an invisible adversary. I find him one night, hunched over a light, whispering furiously. "They were wrong, you know." He glares at me, eyes wild. The data was wrong. They knew this was a death trap all along. I try reason, logic, a commander's firmness, but it's useless. The madness has taken hold, born of the oppressive silence and this alien place that infects the mind as surely as the creatures outside infect a ship. I know then that we are utterly lost. The ship was a lifeline, a piece of the familiar world. Now that's stripped away, and the structure's vastness crushes us. Its silent corridors a labyrinth for our unraveling minds. I spend hours staring at the pale orbs clinging to the ceiling. They pulse with a slow rhythm, mirroring the throb of a headache that never goes away. At night, shapes slither across the walls, born from the corner of my eye, the tricks the relentless lowlight plays. Sometimes I hear footsteps in the emptiness. Carlson, I think, or some nameless member of the crew, still alive in the twisted corners of my mind. Paranoia festers. Morgan watches me over his moss broth, eyes narrowed. There's less and less food, and I see the hunger in his gaze, the primal calculation. He's become the predator, and I the prey, even in this lifeless tomb. One day I'll come across his body crumpled and lifeless, victim to his own madness or mine. Or perhaps I'll vanish into the corridors, consumed by shadows. Jupiter holds many secrets, and in the end, it seems, the most destructive one resides within our own fracturing minds.